In the US, a Burberry trench coat doesn't just cost between $2,500 to $3,000. Depending on the version, the price can go on up to $8,000 or even exceed $1,000. That figure alone is enough to make most people stop in their tracks. To put it into perspective, $4,800 can buy a high-end MacBook Pro. $6,000 could cover a year's rent in many parts of the country. Yet every spring, when the rain falls in New York or Boston, you see the same scene. 3 or 4 out of 10 people walking down the street are wearing a trench coat, and many of them are Burberry. Part of the reason is that Burberry doesn't just sell one type of trench coat. There are classic gabardine cotton versions, but also cashmere versions that feel like a luxurious outerwear piece, leather trench coats that are truly high fashion, and runway or seasonal designs with experimental cuts and materials. Once you step outside the basic style, the price skyrockets. Then there's the collectible aspect. Some Burberry trench coats, especially those linked to film history or produced in limited quantities, have auctioned for over $1,000. At that price, the coat is no longer just clothing, but begins to become an item of cultural value. At the same time, there's a strange contradiction. While some people shell out tens of thousands of dollars for a trench coat, others proudly boast about finding vintage Burberry coats at thrift stores for just $30. That gap sparks endless debate. So why is it so expensive? Who actually wears it today? And why does this coat elicit such mixed reactions, praise, criticism, negative comparisons, and a fervent love for vintage versions? It is precisely this tension that makes the Burberry trench coat so compelling. The Burberry trench coat is one of those items that everyone recognizes instantly. You do not need to be a fashion expert to know what it is. You have almost certainly seen it in movies, on the street, in old photos, and even on modern Instagram. It feels familiar, very simple and ordinary. Yet, its price tag is anything but. For some, the Burberry trench coat symbolizes class, restraint, and understated elegance. It is not flashy. It does not rely on big logos. It shows taste without trying too hard. However, for others, the coat seems stiff, too serious, or even outdated. Some critics are even more critical, arguing that with certain colors or long styles, it can feel uncomfortable or inappropriate depending on the occasion. This mixed reaction is precisely what makes this coat so interesting. It is both loved and criticized at the same time. Praised for its timelessness, it is also considered prohibitively expensive. Celebrated as a heritage icon, it is also deemed outdated. And then there is the price. A standard Burberry trench coat starts at around $2,500. Higher-end versions can go up to $8,000 or more. That puts it in a segment where most people wonder, what are you really paying for? So expensive, and is it really worth the price? Or are people paying for history, image, and symbolism rather than the coat itself? To answer that question, let's find the answer now. As an American, I can state this clearly: buying a Burberry trench coat in America is not like shopping for regular clothes. It's more like a long-term financial decision. For most American buyers, the price might seem shocking at first glance, but once they compare it to other segments and understand what makes it so special, that sky-high figure starts to make sense. Therefore, Burberry isn't overpriced compared to competitors like Hermes or Loro Piana. It's priced precisely according to American expectations for a long-standing luxury icon. And there are 3 reasons why Burberry trench coats are always so expensive. First is the meticulous attention to detail. A heritage trench coat is made from approximately 80 individual pieces and undergoes 120 quality control steps. The collar alone is one of the most expensive details. Artisans spend up to a year learning how to sew it properly. Around 180 to 200 hand stitches are used to create the natural curve that hugs the neck. No machine can replicate this. The belt and metal D-rings are hand-stitched in leather, precisely 11.5 stitches per inch, no more, no less. Secondly, there's the gabardine fabric. Thomas Burberry invented gabardine in 1879, and the exact process remains a closely guarded secret. The fabric is woven extremely tightly, about 100 threads per square centimeter. That structure creates microscopic gaps that allow air to circulate while keeping out rain. It's incredibly difficult to tear by hand and is abrasion resistant for decades. You can wear it in London drizzle or New York snow and stay dry without feeling bulky. Thirdly, there's the checkered lining. Burberry's signature check pattern isn't expensive just because of the pattern itself, but because of its absolute precision. When tailoring a jacket, the lines must be perfectly aligned at seams such as the shoulders, armpits, and hem. This requirement wastes fabric, increases labor time, and drives up costs, but it's indispensable in the luxury industry. Besides scarcity, the Made in the UK strategy and label also contribute significantly to the high price of the Burberry trench coat. Burberry has also proactively elevated its brand. In 2019, a heritage trench coat cost around $1,900. By 2025, the same product will cost nearly $3,000. This is not just inflation. It is also a positioning strategy. The higher price reinforces exclusivity and elevates the brand to the same level as Louis Vuitton or Dior. The production location is also crucial. Burberry continues to manufacture key trench coats in the UK, including in Castleford. For buyers in the US, Made in the UK is not a marketing gimmick, but a signal of value worth paying an extra $1,000. Ironically, classic Burberry trench coats, often labeled Burberrys, are typically made in England, have removable wool linings, and last for 20 to 30 years. People frequently boast about finding them for $10, $30, £30, or €30 at vintage stores. That gap reveals the truth. The price of a modern Burberry reflects not only its function, but also its heritage, scarcity, and iconic status. And that tension between practical utility and cultural value is precisely why prices continue to rise and why Americans continue to buy them. That very tension has transformed the Burberry trench coat from a mere piece of clothing into a controversial cultural icon. Negative comparisons have been repeated, particularly online. Some associate the long, dark trench coat with Nazi officers or Gestapo figures, military commanders, or the power uniforms of the past. Others compare it to the coat of a funeral home worker, cold and emotionless. In the US, the most sensitive comparison so far has been the stereotypical image of a school shooter, making any long black coat inherently emotional in certain contexts. Even if the comparison is unfair, perception is crucial, and once that association exists, it is hard to ignore. Much of the criticism focuses on how the coat is worn, not simply on the coat itself. A long, sharp-looking black trench coat can feel overly serious, even intimidating, especially in a relaxed or casual setting. Critics argue that wearing it to inappropriate places, a cafe, a university, a casual social gathering, can easily lead to misunderstandings. They believe it is not versatile, it is context-dependent. Then there is the debate about price. Many believe the current retail price of Burberry trench coats is inflated, particularly when compared to older Burberry styles. Classic versions are often praised for being thicker, more durable, and more solidly constructed. This reinforces the view that older Burberry was better, while modern Burberry is charging higher prices for brand name rather than quality. Meanwhile, a quiet but loyal group of consumers views modern Burberry trench coats very differently. For them, it is not a symbol or a statement, it is a tool. They prefer a more fitted silhouette, lighter weight, and cleaner lines. They appreciate its suitability for practical urban life, commuting, traveling, meetings, unpredictable weather. They do not dress to argue online, they dress for their daily routines. This is why the trench coat remains controversial. It sits right at the intersection of history, fashion, price, and perception. And depending on who you ask, it can be outdated and overpriced, or one of the most practical luxury coats you can own. That's why the Burberry trench coat has quietly proven its worth throughout every trend cycle. In modern life, the Burberry trench coat appears where practicality truly matters. You see it constantly in cities like New York, Boston, and London, places where people walk a lot, deal with unpredictable weather, and need outfits suitable for many situations throughout the day. It is popular in urban environments, offices, airports, and hotels because it solves the real problem of maintaining a smart look without feeling overly ostentatious. Its cultural prestige is further reinforced by those who have worn it. Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis made an icon of understated American elegance. Meryl Streep made it the uniform of an independent, modern New Yorker on screen. More recently, Rihanna and Blake Lively have worn it in relaxed, oversized, or layered ways, proving that it remains relevant to contemporary style. What makes the trench coat irreplaceable is its balance. It is versatile without being boring. It does not have flashy logos, but those who know quality recognize it instantly. It can be worn over a suit, over casual wear, or even over sportswear without clashing. Few modern coats can so easily transition from morning commutes to client meetings or dinner dates. That versatility is its true value. The trench coat is not flashy, does not chase trends or seek attention. It simply fits into life and remains useful year after year. That very history gives the Burberry trench coat a depth that most modern coats lack. The trench coat did not begin as a luxury item or a fashion statement. It originated as a military coat designed for officers needing protection from rain, wind, and mud in harsh conditions. Functionality was paramount. Style was merely a coincidence. The key breakthrough was gabardine, a tightly woven fabric developed to be waterproof, breathable, and durable enough for long-term use. It was not flashy, but it was effective, and more effective than anything else at the time. After World War II, things changed. Soldiers returned home, surplus military coats were relegated to civilian life, and the trench coat took on a new meaning. It became associated with masculinity, intellect, and urban living. Writers, architects, professors, detectives, and urban professionals used it as a symbol of quiet power. The coat represented thoughtfulness rather than brute force. This shift is where Burberry made its mark. Burberry evolved from a company that solved weather-related problems into a brand that represented culture and identity. The overcoat retained its practicality, but it also became iconic. It was not redesigned to chase trends, it was refined, slowly and purposefully. The combination of military origins, practical engineering, and cultural symbolism is why the overcoat remains relevant today. It does not pretend to be new. It endures because its foundation was never superficial in the first place. A Burberry trench coat isn't a financial investment in the traditional sense. You wouldn't buy it today and resell it later for a profit. But if you look at the cost per wear, the calculation tells a different story. Spending $2,500 on a coat worn for 20 years is equivalent to about $125 per year. That's far less than what many people spend replacing cheaper coats every few seasons. A cheap coat used for a short time will often end up costing more. A durable coat used for decades will become cheaper over time. This is the highlight of a classic Burberry trench coat. Lower starting price, proven quality, and very high resale value. For those who appreciate quality clothing, that's the real investment. I have a few tips for you. If you like a modern, sleek, flattering look and do not mind spending money, a Burberry trench coat is still a great option. Current designs are slimmer, lighter, and easier to wear in practical urban life. They are suitable for work, meetings, travel, and everyday urban use. If you want a clear suggestion, the Westminster Extra Long Heritage in camel or khaki is the safest bet. It retains the hallmarks of the original trench coat while still fitting modern proportions. It is timeless, durable, and unlikely to go out of style. However, there is a reason why classic Burberry trench coats are so highly valued. Priced between $100 and $400, they offer exceptional value. Many made in England, use thicker gabardine fabric, and feature details rarely seen today. The more classic style, often wider and longer, appeals to those who want the authentic, classic trench coat look. For those who appreciate craftsmanship and durability, a classic Burberry is hard to beat. The sizing is key. Vintage sizing can be inconsistent, especially between different decades. You need to know your measurements, shoulder width, sleeve length, chest circumference, and coat length, and be prepared to pass on an item that does not fit. Buying vintage requires patience, but the rewards can be substantial. Before buying anything, take 2 steps. First, understand where you will be wearing the coat. The office, travel, everyday city life, or occasional use all lead to different choices. Second, honestly compare new and vintage. One offers convenience and modern style. The other offers heritage and historical value. Thank you for watching the entire video, and please leave your comments. Suggest any expensive products or brands we can analyze next in the comments section. Why is it so expensive? If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on what topic you would like me to cover in the next video. See you next time.